The NFL Draft is just 3 weeks away, so let's take a look at Field Yates' two-round mock draft and see what he has in store for the Atlanta Falcons. Before we dive into the details, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. We're just 51 subscribers away from hitting 34,400, and I'd love to reach 35,000 before the first round kicks off. So if you enjoy the content, hit that subscribe button. Now let's break down Field Yates' mock draft. Starting off in round 1, we see Cam Ward going number 1 overall, which isn't surprising. Following him are Abdul Carter, Shatter Sanders, and his teammate Travis Hunter, rounding out the top 4 picks. While this order seems expected, I have my doubts about Shatter going as high as some predict. At pick 5, Mason Graham heads to the Jaguars, a selection I've seen frequently. Then Ashton Jenney goes to the Raiders, and this is where things start to get interesting. The Jets at pick 7 select Armand Membo, a right tackle from Missouri. The Panthers at 8 grab Jalen Walker, a linebacker from Georgia, who I consider one of the top 2 players in this draft for the Falcons. Following that, Shamir Stewart goes to the Saints. Let's pause here to discuss Stewart. While Walker feels like a bit of a long shot, I can see Stewart being picked anywhere from New Orleans at 9 to the Eagles at 32. The pass rusher class is all over the place, and it really comes down to personal preference. It's like choosing between a great Chinese, Italian, or Mexican restaurant. They're all good, but it's about what you prefer. Personally, I lean towards pass rushers with a solid track record of production. 1.5 sacks just doesn't cut it for me, no matter how athletic you are. Football is played with pads on, not in Indianapolis in February, so I'm going to pass on Shamir Stewart for Atlanta at pick 15. As we move closer to the Falcons' pick, the Bears select Will Campbell from LSU, a solid left tackle. The 49ers then take Walter Nolan, a defensive tackle from Ole Miss, and T. McMillan, the Arizona receiver, finds a new home in Dallas. Will Johnson goes just 2 picks before the Falcons to Miami, and then Tyler Warren falls to the Colts at 14. With the 15th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Mike Green, a defensive end out of Marshall. This is a name that frequently comes up in Falcons mock drafts, making the offseason discussions quite interesting. There are several names being tossed around for pick 15, but let's focus on Mike Green's production last year. He led the nation in sacks with 17, marking a true breakout season with 23 tackles for loss and 59 pressures. Some doubted him due to the level of competition in the Sun Belt, but if you watch the tape against Ohio State, you'll see he held his own against linemen likely to be picked in the first 2 rounds. Green opted to test at his pro day instead of the combine, and he absolutely crushed it. His 3-cone drill time of 6.85 seconds would have easily topped all linebackers and defensive linemen at the combine. For context, Iowa's Jay Higgins led the combine with a time of 7.01 seconds. It's worth noting that many top prospects didn't test at the combine, so we missed out on some of the best athletes like Abdul Carter and Mike Green. I want to be clear about my stance on testing. I don't put a lot of weight into combine or pro day results for certain positions. Sometimes pro days have a hometown stopwatch and the times can be significantly different. For example, a Texas running back was clocked more than 1/10 of a second faster in Austin than in Indianapolis. Something doesn't add up there. Ultimately, I'm looking for football players, not track stars. How many times have we seen the Falcons draft a player who looked great on paper, only to find out a few years later that it just didn't work out? No one seems to remember that he was fast that one day in February. So while it's great to be fast, strong, and athletic, it's not the number one factor in my decision-making process. This background on Green is important because I think there's a strong chance he could be the pick for Atlanta. However, there are some concerns. He transferred from Virginia to Marshall, and there are questions about why that happened. However, there are some concerns surrounding Mike Green. He has faced 2 accusations of sexual assault, although no charges have been filed, and he denies both incidents. One allegation dates back to high school, while the other occurred during his time at Virginia. His college career was a bit erratic. He played, then didn't play, and then transferred, which has led to speculation that his transfer was linked to the allegations. This means teams will need to do their homework on Green to ensure they're comfortable with the character of the player they're considering, not just his impressive stats from last season. If the Falcons are looking at pick 15 and both Will Johnson and Jalen Walker are off the board, I think Mike Green could be a solid choice. I'm torn between him, Michael Williams, and James Pierce, but I'd be on board with Green at 15. Now let's see who the Falcons might pass on. A couple of offensive linemen go off the board between Arizona and Cincinnati, and I don't think they'll go for a receiver with Matthew Golden heading to Seattle. Malachi Starks, the safety from Georgia, is a name to keep an eye on, but I wouldn't put too much stock in that. Omari Hampton? No way. They're not taking a running back, and with Jackson Dart going to the Steelers, I don't see them selecting a quarterback either. Michael Williams falls to the Green Bay Packers at pick 23, and he's been a tough prospect to gauge. I've seen mock drafts placing him as high as the top 10 with New Orleans, while others have him around 23. It's clear that no one has a firm grasp on where he'll land. I expect 4 edge rushers to go in round 1. Michael Williams, Mike Green, Shamir Stewart, and James Pierce. So far, we've only seen 3 of those names. At pick 24, the Vikings select Jahdae Barron, a versatile defensive back from Texas. I really like his versatility and think it will translate well to the next level. Donovan Jackson goes to the Texans to bolster their offensive line, and Kentucky's Maxwell Harrison heads to the Rams. Then James Pierce Jr. goes to the Ravens at pick 27. Let's take a moment to discuss Pierce. He had an incredible 2023 season, and early 2025 mock drafts had him going first overall to the Carolina Panthers. It's quite a drop from that lofty position to somewhere around 26 or 27. 2 main reasons stand out for this decline in his draft stock. First, while he finished the year with 7.5 sacks, he didn't have the impact in some of the bigger games that many expected. The second concern is his locker room presence. There have been whispers from high school teammates and some chatter from Knoxville that he might be a bit of a head case. He has a bit of that Andy Bernard vibe, dealing with what I like to call a case of the grumpies. Any team considering investing a first-round pick in him will need to do their due diligence to ensure they're comfortable with his character. The Lions at pick 28 select Derek Harmon out of Oregon. I don't think Atlanta will go for Harmon, but if they're looking to replace Grady Jarrett, he's a name to consider. Then we have Nicky Minari, who I believe is my favorite safety in this class. He's built like a linebacker but runs like a safety, and he heads to D.C. The Patriots add to their offensive line after selecting Travis Hunter, and they trade back into round 1. The Raiders also make a move to select Luther Burden, and the Eagles wrap up the first round with Jihad Campbell, a linebacker out of Alabama. I've seen his name pop up in mock drafts for the Falcons a couple of times, so don't sleep on him. Personally, though, I'd pass. I just don't think he's that outstanding as an inside linebacker. Sure, he played a bit at outside linebacker in high school, but Jalen Walker is the only tweener I'm willing to consider because I think he's an incredible player. Campbell was the best player on Alabama's defense last year, and I'm not saying he's not a good football player, but for what Atlanta needs on defense, I'd prefer a more traditional edge rusher, unless we're talking about 2 exceptions, Campbell and Jalen Walker. Let's dive into the NFL draft talk, folks. Today, we're focusing on some exciting prospects and what they could mean for teams looking to make a splash. First up, let's talk about the Tennessee Titans. They've made a solid choice by picking Donovan Asuku, a defensive end from Boston College. This guy is someone we should all be paying attention to. Last season, he racked up an impressive 16.5 sacks, showcasing his ability to disrupt opposing offenses. After a couple of quieter years, he really broke out, and his athleticism is hard to ignore. Unfortunately, playing at Boston College meant he didn't get the national spotlight he deserved, but I believe he has the potential to shine in the NFL. Now let's shift gears to Kenneth Grant. If the Atlanta Falcons are looking to replace Grady Jarrett on their defensive line, Grant could be their guy. He's a massive presence at 331 pounds and moves surprisingly well for his size. However, he has had some games where he disappears, which raises a few eyebrows. Still, his ceiling is incredibly high, and someone is bound to take a chance on him. As we move through the draft, we see a few more names pop up. Josh Simmons and Tyler Booker are linemen to keep an eye on, while Amarius Mims and Jaden Higgins are 2 receivers who are also making waves. The Bears are adding another running back, the Jets are looking at tight ends, and the 49ers are bolstering their offensive line. Now, with the 46th pick, the Atlanta Falcons have selected Darius Alexander, a defensive tackle from Toledo. Standing at 6 feet 4 inches and weighing 335 pounds, he certainly has the physical traits teams look for. He was named second-team All-MAC this past season, but let's be real. If you've played 6 years in college, you'd hope to be at the top of your game. With only 3.5 sacks last season, he doesn't scream pass rush specialist, but he does show flashes of potential. However, at pick 46, I would have liked to see the Falcons go for someone with a bit more upside. There were other players on the board that I would have preferred, like Nick Scorton or Isaiah Thomas from Florida State. Even a corner like Chevin Calloway from ECU could have been a better fit. Looking ahead, if the Falcons decide to go for a pass rusher in the first round, they might want to consider adding to their secondary in the second round. Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame is a name to watch, but he's coming off a hip injury that could raise some concerns. If the Falcons feel comfortable with his medical history, they could be getting a steal at this point in the draft. So there you have it. The draft is heating up, and it's going to be exciting to see how these picks pan out for the teams involved. Keep your eyes peeled for more updates as we continue to break down the action. Let's keep the momentum going as we break down more draft picks and what they mean for the teams involved. First off, we need to talk about the potential concerns surrounding Darius Alexander. If he struggles with injuries, he could end up being viewed as a bust, similar to Caleb Farley when he was drafted by the Titans a few years back. It's a tough league, and staying healthy is crucial for success. Now let's shine a spotlight on JT Tuimoloau, the defensive end from Ohio State. This guy had a phenomenal finish to the 2024 season, playing a key role in the Buckeyes' national championship run. He racked up 4 to 5 sacks during the college football playoff, proving he can perform on the biggest stage. After a slow start in Columbus, he really showed why he was such a highly sought-after recruit for Ryan Day. As we round out the second round of the draft, there aren't many names that jump off the page. However, keep an eye on Xavier Watts, the safety from Notre Dame, and Tate Ratledge from Georgia, especially if the Falcons are looking to replace Drew Dahlman. The New Orleans Saints are making waves by trading up to grab quarterback Will Howard, so that's something to watch. The Bills are also looking at Jacob Parrish, another cornerback, while Landon Jackson and Alfred Collins, 2 defensive linemen, round out picks 63 and 64. Speaking of Collins, he's a name to remember. At 6 feet 5 inches and 330 pounds, he has the size that teams love. He might not have the same pass-rushing ability as Grady Jarrett, but he could carve out a solid career in the NFL as a 3-technique player. Now let's recap what the Falcons have done in this mock draft. They picked Mike Green, a defensive end from Marshall, and Darius Alexander, the defensive tackle from Toledo. If I had to grade this, I'd give it a C. The first-round pick carries more weight than the second, and while I like Alexander, I don't love the pick. I would have preferred to see them go for someone else like Jalen Carter or Will Campbell, but they were taken before the Falcons had their chance. That's a wrap for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to hit that thumbs up button on your way out. I'll catch you all next time.